All right, hello and welcome to the video. My name is Wade Daniel Smith, and I am a brown belt or first Q, third degree brown belt or first Q in Ishinryu Karate, Okinawan Karate, and Japanese Jiu Jitsu. I also have about a year and a half formal training under Raphael Ellinger, fifth degree black belt in Gracie Jiu Jitsu, and I've been to about a total of 300 or so hours of seminar in Tai Chi Kwan, Kung Fu, and additional seminars in Ishinryu Karate and things like that. So what I'm going to discuss here is ways that the karate or Japanese jiu-jitsu fighter can overcome even the rules of Brazilian jiu-jitsu and turn the rules against them. For example, in Brazilian jiu-jitsu, what do you see? You see a lot of people trying to pass guard, and either you get caught in their guard or you get successfully past their guard, and you get half guard or side mount or full mount. All right, so side mount and half guard are actually more devastating than full mount, in my opinion. I don't see any reason to go past half guard, because in half guard you can stand up on your knee and rain down punches. Whereas if you get in full mount and you start trying to rain down punches, what's going to happen is the other person's going to slip down on you and throw you over. So, from half guard, you have just as much control over their legs as they have over yours, and you're on top. But anyway, if we want to pass guard, or if we just want to win without even passing guard, let's say the other person tried to pull guard and they're lying on the ground and you're standing up. Don't enter their guard unless you're absurdly good at fighting through the opponent's guard. But what you can do is get to the outside of the person's leg. Let me see if I can get this camera a little bit better, since I'm not as flexible as I was when I was 20 years old. Get to the outside of the person's leg, and you want to put a joint lock on their leg. All right. You don't even have to pass guard. You're going to either figure 4 ankle lock, which goes under here and catches under the Achilles, or you're going to do a side ankle lock. Balance myself a bit better. And you're going to turn their foot sideways, and while you're twisting on it, you're going to twist on it like mad. And then if it's Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu only and there's no striking allowed, you can still take the back of your thumb and press down onto the shin, and there are a hell of a lot of nerve endings up in here. And if you do it right, you can tap your opponent right out with no striking allowed. In MMA, where there's striking allowed, you can just keep pounding on their shin until they give up. All right? Or you could end up breaking their leg. All right. But the figure 4 ankle lock, let me see if I can show you this. Take a sock off for a second. See if I can show this. With the figure 4 ankle lock, you have the Achilles tendon and Achilles nerve that run right here on the backside of your at the top of your ankle and heel. All right. And you're going to put pressure there with either your own radius bone right here, or with this bone right here. Let me get on the camera. With this bone right here, it's at the base of your thumb, or with your radius. And you're going to put the pressure into the Achilles tendon, and believe me, it hurts. And then you're going to lean back, take a step back and lean back and roll back. And then you're going to roll your wrist back, and you're going to tap them out right there on the spot. And if they don't tap to that, you can reverse it and do the reverse figure 4 or a calf slicer while you're standing up and they're still grounded. And they were an idiot because they tried to pull guard. Now, excuse me, I have type 2 diabetes, and I've been very, 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 very sick for a long time. So the fact that I am overweight, please don't hold that against me. I know my stuff. I was an extremely good fighter whenever I was half my present age. Extremely good. All right. So that's one thing to do. The other thing is, let's say you're let's say in MMA and even BJJ, before somebody decides to pull guard, everybody starts in the standing position. So learn how to grapple in the standing position before you even bother learning how to grapple on the ground. If you learn how to grapple in the standing position, you might never end up going to the ground. All right. So you got like this sprawl where, let me get my footwork right. One person is going to grab the other high at the shoulder, and then the other hand might end up being on their hip. When this happens, you can grab this person, rotate their wrist, because the wrist is very weak when rotating side to side. It's very strong when rotating this way, but it still gets tapped out. All right. But rotate their wrist this way. Your thumb goes into the small crease between the thumb and the index finger on the other person. Your thumb goes in there, and your fingers grab the outside of the small finger in these metatarsals, or whatever they're called, in the hand. All right. And the other one is there. And you twist this way. Your other hand comes up and over and pushes down on the elbow. So now we have both a wrist lock and an elbow lock on the person, and we're joint locking them. All right. And anybody that says this does not work has never had it done correctly on them. All right. Well, what if the other guy throws a punch while he's locked like this? First of all, it's incredibly hard to get the torque to throw a punch against this hyperextended elbow. You will break your own arm if you try it. But if they throw an arm punch, so what? We can change the technique. We can block with our own elbow. All right. Because we got an elbow high to get this tension here. We can just lift our own elbow up and block like that if he throws another punch. And so we'll block with the back of our elbow. And maybe his fist will wrap around, but it's not going to hit you in the head anywhere near enough to take you off of this joint lock. Once you get the joint lock on them, all right, imagine that's fully hyperextended. This is twisted over very violently this way, actually. All right, that's fully hyperextended. Once you get that on there, you can then throw knee strikes or full kicks into the lower abdomen, the groin, and the lower abdomen over and over again while you crank down. All right. So there are ways to use karate and Japanese jiu-jitsu submissions. All right. Now, you may remember early on in the UFC, Patrick Smith, the self-trained Sabaki challenge champion who got beat by Royce Gracie. The problem with that example of karate getting beat by Gracie Jiu-Jitsu is manifold. He was self-trained for a striking-only tournament, all right? He had zero training in Bunkai or Japanese Jiu-Jitsu, all right? Zero. So he had no idea what he was getting into when he went up against Gracie. All right, so that's not a very good example of a fully trained under a grandmaster, what a first, second, third, fourth degree black belt would be, who had been trained by a grandmaster, would be, because such a person would actually know their jujitsu. Now, suppose you have a punch, the typical schoolyard punch or street brawl punch is going to be either the good right overhand, which is a lot like a hook punch, or the unskilled overhand hammer fist. Those are actually the two easiest punches in martial arts or self-defense situations to either block or parry or totally evade, because they actually take the longest time to reach the target. This one is awful, all right? You see it used a lot in MMA once the opponent is already downed, because this gives maximum power to a downed opponent, all right? But it also has the longest travel time to the target, making it relatively easy to block or parry or evade. So the good overhand, which is like a hook punch that's coming a little bit over but then down, all right, what can we do against that? You're going to step back and away into what's called a cross stance as you block, and you're going to go with the energy that the person has and pull them down and grab, side arm control. Then you can back fist them in the side of the temple and so forth. But you're going to end up in a cross stance. And then once you're in the cross stance, you can then throw in knee strikes or kicks to their abdomen as well from there, using their own leverage to balance with. Because you can actually use their body as a balance point to kick against them, which makes it even more devastating, because you're pulling down on them, yanking them into the kick or the knee strike or the back fist. Understand? So that's a typical, pretty decently skilled punch. Is called the right overhand. It's actually considered one of the most devastating, and yet it's the easiest or second easiest in all punches to block or evade. When they throw it and you're pretty sure you know a hook or a right overhand is coming, that's how you do it. The other possibility is to step into the hook. So the hook's coming, and like, let's say their right hand is punching at me. All right. I can step and say I'm in a good Seisan stance, which is basically just a natural stance. your front foot is about 1 to 1.5 feet forward, and your stance is about shoulder width to shoulder width and a half wide. This is the general range that professional fighters, both boxers and MMA fighters, use. And it's also what I was taught to use in Isshinryu karate. Now, suppose that I see that hook punch or the right overhand coming, I can step into the person and put both hands up as a double chop block. This is less likely to miss time the block and either be ahead of the punch or behind the punch because I've got both hands going. I've got this hand blocking the radius of the opponent's punch, and I got this hand blocking this muscle group right here on your biceps. In the dead center of your biceps, there's a pressure point. And if you drill the hell out of your opponent's bicep dead center, it's going to deaden their arm, and their arm is going to go limp for 5 seconds. And I know because I've had it done to me. All right. Now, so you're going to step in. Now, the other alternative is you can step all the way in and block right here in the small of your elbow. The small inside of the opponent's elbow is also a pressure point. All right. You can block, just be aware that their arm's going to fling around a little bit, but if you do it right, you won't get hit. Well, what am I doing with my other hand? I'm going to palm heel them in the chin or the nose with the other hand at the same time, block and punch. All right. You're going to, the naysayers say, what happens if the person throws a 1-2 combination? We're going to change our technique instinctively as he changes his technique. So then I'm like, I've done hit you in the face. I blocked your punch. You're throwing another punch simultaneously. How hard is it for me to just move my arm over 6 inches, intercept your punch, and hit you again in the face? So I've done hit you in the face twice, even though I was the original defender, and you missed both times. What happens when I hit you in the face twice? Your head's going to be going back like this, and your groin or your knees are going to come forward, in which case I'm going to kick you in the groin or knee with my back foot for full power. I'm going to kick the living hell out of you in the groin or the knee, and that's probably going to be the end of the fight in most real fights. Because once you get hit, or the solar plexus, depending on where your body position comes out, once you get hit in one of them 3 targets with a full power thrust kick from an Isshinryu karate student, that's going to be the end of the fight. You're going to be disabled. We know that from real self-defense situations. All right, another one. Typical straight punch. Let's say it's their jab or their cross coming in. A decent jab cross. And so you can, say you got your standing guard here. I don't know why the camera is off center suddenly because my standing guard doesn't look that bad. But anyway, you got your standing guard here. It's a little bit wide, but you can easily do this number to block the straight punch coming in, because a traditional boxing straight punch is like that. And it's very easy to block without even really moving your hand. All you got to do is this number, and you block it from hitting you in the face. You don't even have to move your hands to block a traditional boxing straight punch. The reason that we use the vertical fist punch in Isshinryu is because it gets through that zone right there pretty easily. All right. Even when they do that number. So then you have to do a full parry to stop a vertical fist punch, because it slides right through that hole right there a lot easier than the horizontal twist punch, because your fist is about half as wide that way as it is that way, if you'll notice. The other reason we use a vertical fist punch is if you ever notice, boxers have to tape their wrist to work out on a bag so they don't get spiral fractures in their wrist. Isshinryu karate students do not have to tape our wrists to work out on a bag or to even punch solid objects, because your muscles and bones are better aligned right here. And in reality, the best professional boxers like Naoya Inoue and Terrence Crawford are going back to using a vertical fist straight punch for their jab and cross, because they found out that it actually works better. It's both faster and stronger and safer. All right. So enough on that for a moment. So the jab cross is coming in. What all else can I do? I can step aside over here as I parry and pull you down to my hip. And then when I stand up, I've got a cross heel stomp kick to the side of your knee right here. Understand? And the side of the knee only takes 70 pounds or so of pressure to break, because your knee is not designed to move side to side. Your knee is designed to move front to back, back to front. If you get hit in the side of your knee at even a fraction of the power that a cross-heel stomp kick or forward angle kick can hit, it's going to absolutely destroy your knee, and the person kicking you is going to be just fine, because Their leg was moving front to back on their joint, and your leg was moving side to side in a direction that's not designed to move. All right. That's a self-defense move, by the way. That's not going to be legal in UFC, obviously. What could be legal in UFC, let me show this. What could be illegal in UFC, depending on how the other person ends up postured, when you pull them into sidearm control, you can step on the back of their knee. There's a pressure point right there in the back of your knee. And you can step on it. It's legal to push down on it with your foot to cause the other person's knee to buckle while you're working on your hand play on your sidearm control. So you take your free foot and you step down into theirs, and they're going to hit the deck, and you've already got sidearm control. And from there, you can apply the disarmor if you know how, or you can apply a hammer lock and go for a rear naked choke from the hammerlock position, because they're going to be pretty well helpless. This position very rarely happens in MMA because usually the other person is competent enough not to let you get to here, but it does happen once in a while, and usually the person who ends up grounded loses right away. All right. Because sidearm control, I've never lost a sparring match. Once I got sidearm control on somebody, I automatically win. And it doesn't happen very often against brown and black belt level fighters anyway. But it's worth discussing because not everybody in MMA is even a brown or black belt. There's an awful lot of them that are only blue and purple belts. They're not necessarily always the ranked ones, but Alex Pereira, because he mostly relies on his striking, he won the championship belt before he even became a black belt in a grappling style, because he was able to stay on his feet the whole time. All right. I've gone to 17 minutes. This has gotten pretty long. All right. Thank you very much to anybody who ends up watching this, which probably won't be very many people, but I think that it works. I wish that I looked more healthier, because I used to be a real beast. But around 24 years old, I developed, for no apparent reason, latent type 2 diabetes, a very serious case of it, and what's called hemochromatosis, which causes me to have high iron and high calcium. And it causes me to have nerve pain where I feel pins and needles and fire all over my entire body, pretty much from the crown of my head all the way through my hands, my face, my groin, my feet, everything, So, and that was, I still only weighed about the correct weight back when it first started. So actually the disease caused the weight gain, not the other way around. They got something wrong in the way they fight disease in the medical industry, because the disease causes the weight gain. The weight gain does not cause the disease. And I can pretty much prove it because I remember the order in which stuff happened. But anyway, what else can you do to defeat Gracie Jiu-Jitsu? So I discussed passing their guard. I discussed countering a punch in ways other than what Gracie Jiu-Jitsu does, more like Japanese Jiu-Jitsu counters to a punch. What about double underhooks? Let's say your opponent gets 1 or 2 underhooks on you. Normally, you end up getting thrown. What can you do there? This is not legal in MMA, but this is. Don't chop them. Just push on down into their throat. It's a front choke, all right? And it's actually going to be this side of your hand, the blade of your hand that's going to go in there. But don't strike. But a front choke is legal in MMA with either the front of your hand or the side of your arm. The radius, that's actually going to be the ulna of your arm, all right? And you front choke them when they get ready to throw you. And even if they do get the throw off, you got an advantage on them because you're already cutting their air off, all right? And you're causing pain back to them, all right? There are other things you can do as well. For example, in MMA, when they go for the double underhook, as long as you keep them from getting both underhooks, you can still knee strike them, and their hands are now trapped behind your body, and you don't even have to hand play with it because you still got hands free. You have advantages, in other words, because I've said there are at least 2 ways to counter everything in martial arts. There are no perfect techniques in martial arts. There are at least 2 counters to everything. So if he double underhooks me, his hands are actually behind my body as he's trying to throw me. My hands are up. I can palm him in the face even if I only get 3 to 6 inches of movement. I can knee strike him in response. I can step on his feet. I can wrap my leg around his knee so he can't throw me. Understand? So there's counters to everything. All right. I'm going to go ahead and go because this is 20 minutes long. Thank you to anybody that watches.